The 2000s were not great, but it was a weird golden age of World War II content. Late 90s we had Saving Private Ryan, then Band of Brothers in September of 2001, and then all these honestly still iconic games like Medal of Honor, COD 1 through 3, Company of Heroes, and Hearts of Iron all got their start in the early to mid 2000s. They all have a certain style to them that, for better or worse, has changed and it's probably never really coming back. That's the thesis for this video. Let's start with the thing that controls the tone the most, the music. So why can't more World War II themed music in video games sound like this anymore? There's a certain energy that older World War II games used to have that newer ones lack or outright reject. You probably already know what I'm talking about. It's this weird, also hi, I'm Blanco. It's this weird, noble, triumphant, but also kind of solemn music that plays in really all the best World War II media, including these ones. The Hearts of Iron 4 theme though is basically immaculate. Like, it encapsulates all of that I love about this very specific genre of music, and it's honestly like the last release example I can think of, and it's almost 10 years old. Most music in these types of games is very generic. Name a World War II game after like post-scriptum that is good and or similar to this. They don't exist anymore. Look at the old War Thunder Hangry music. It was so much better, like objectively. New music, cringe. Appeals to the people who like funk and whatnot, the like dregs of society. It's for the kind of person that watches funk edits of World War II casualties. So like children. The old music though, like, oh my god, you can feel like someone gave a fuck. They cared, themes were handcrafted for nations, and I know they haven't replaced all the music, but still. It's bad, and it represents a broader problem I don't like, and I hope Hurai Gaijin proposed this idea a very happy deployment to Ukraine. There isn't a clear moment where this kind of thing stopped being a thing. Overall, everyone just kind of moved on to do newer stuff, instead of making World War II games with the same vibe, which, honestly, fair. But they never did make a better aesthetic in my opinion. I mean, Call of Duty really picked up when they escaped making World War II games and made Call of Duty 4, where they executed you live on stream. But after that, they briefly went back and World at War and basically reinvented what a World War II game should be, for better and worse. I like a little campiness in a war game. It's kinda hard for me to take something seriously if it's always taking itself too seriously. World at War starts and ends with a fucking execution. That game never lets up, even slightly. They got what I'm like 90% sure is real footage of people that were executed in the mission debriefings. Imagine being strung up by some fucking Nazis and 70 years later some kids are watching you swing in a montage. Later a guy gets tied up to a tree and fucking machine gunned. War is hell, guys, did you know that? Now I do love World at War. Well, I love the Soviet campaign. I don't know why, but the American campaign feels like it wants to be a Vietnam movie, but they only like half committed to it. There isn't a real desire to actually beat the Japanese. It just feels like everyone wants to go home, and the campaign ends with this feeling that nothing was really achieved besides surviving the war. Then there's Black Hats, which is somehow the best mission in the entire game despite belonging to what is generally the lesser campaign, in part because of the soundtrack. But Black Hats doesn't really feel like it's taking itself as seriously as the other missions in the game. Like, yeah, there are dudes in the water who are begging to be saved, but it's still a rail shooter where you blow up boats with a machine gun to this shit. And it ends with you being saved in slow-mo. But video games are just a small part of World War II media. Now, on to movies. So we've all watched a war movie at some point, and whenever you watch a movie, regardless of whatever it is, there's a certain vibe that gets set early on, and the movie kind of tells you what to expect without outright telling you. But very rarely does movie douse you with a splash of cold Atlantic water. Saving Private Ryan kind of changed what makes war movies a good war movie forever, for better and worse. The moment that landing craft story hit the sand, every war movie, especially World War II movies, was going to involve someone being ripped to shreds or dying almost comically horribly. Every war movie now basically has some extra being sent into some Happy Wheels death trap in the background. And don't get me wrong, there were other war movies with violence in them, but nothing quite like Saving Private Ryan. It left such an impression that over a decade later, there are still films trying to really grasp at what that movie had. Most pre-Ryan World War II movies often did not portray violence the same way. They were much more about the nobility and daring of the Allies. Afterwards, they all just kind of became violent, and that's kind of it. It kind of became evidence that your war movie was a good war movie. If the soldiers in your movies aren't the victims of some flash game contraption, it's not worth watching, and some people somehow even think it's disrespectful to not show people being ripped in half. Like, if you're not showing people dying almost cartoonishly horribly, you somehow deny the horrors of war. It's definitely not a popular way of looking at war movies, but it's certainly the way some people do. And you know what else? That entire era of nom films kind of spoiled World War II media forever. Somehow directors didn't understand that a proxy war that was very unpopular and tragic was going to be totally different from one of the most black and white conflicts to have ever happened. I think watching people get blown up and burned for war movies is fun. I'm not saying we need to go back to Patton 1970, guys react to explosions and then the explosion happens. Also in that same scene, this guy almost actually gets run over by a tank. But we also do this thing where every soldier needs to be this walking, complicated wreck of emotions and cynicism. It just, it needs balancing out. Fury tries this with a couple scenes and one really sticks out.
Boy, do you think Hitler'd fuck one of us for a chocolate bar?
But even when they're kind of hanging out, they're still driving past civilian refugees. And also I noticed every scene in this movie is just so dark and overcast no matter how much time has passed until like the end of the film. It's literally dark, they're very on the nose with it. And the whole problem with Fury tonally is that it just overshoots into this almost immature nihilism. It very simply feels like it's trying too hard at certain points. Hacksaw Ridge doesn't fail in the same way that Fury does. It finds a completely new one instead, and overshoots in the opposite direction. It has like the same or similar violence where people are blown up, but it's about Desmond Doss and his unshakable moral center of being a pacifist. He gets court-martialed for not picking up a rifle, and then wins that court-martialing, and the movie celebrates this by glorifying violence. Now, Fury and Hacksaw Ridge may not actually be trying to be Saving Private Ryan, but they're very much influenced by it. They're both either knowingly or unknowingly part of this change that occurred, because Saving Private Ryan, and also honestly Band of Brothers, are still basically the perfect World War II media. They both have violence, men being tormented by the nature of war, but at no point does it misunderstand itself or go too far with the emotional grittiness. And in the end, that perfect air of nobility and sacrifice without glorifying war are met. It was a sort of catalyst for everything good about those games we were talking about at the start. The music, the setting, the dynamics, and then all of a sudden we felt the need to step away from that. Now, I don't think every piece of World War II media needs to be Saving Private Ryan to the T, but there is something there that has been lost and should be brought back. Now, COD 1, 2, and 3 didn't really try to have a sort of moral framing, but they still use this very specific kind of aesthetic that I don't have a name for. But anyways, this was kind of a weird video. It's more of just a rant than like an actual thing I'd sit down and make. But if you did enjoy this video, go follow me everywhere. Alright, see y'all later.
Want to listen to some tunes?